Okay, now wish me luck as we're going into Facebook. Oh, by the way, you all look so beautiful. I'm so honored that we're all here together.
You also might want to mute yourselves just while we're going through this part until we hit your bio, if that might be helpful.
Yeah, so I want to just say how honored I am that you guys don't know Chris. This book would not have happened without her. She's been my book doula extraordinaire, like really for the past year. So everything that's happening is because of her seeing something in me and bringing this to life. And I just want to thank you, Chris. And also, these two are my mentors on front lines.
Well, it's been an honor. So, all right, let's go. All right, Paul, are we live?
Not yet.
Okay, just let me know when we're live. Just put a thumbs up.
Yeah, it's taking me to Paul Zeitz, not Dr. Paul Zeitz, so that's the problem. But that's where we're going. Amber's coming in. I don't know if
Maybe ask her, because she's the techie person.
here we're live now.
Hi, everyone. Welcome
wait.
to.
Sorry, wait 1 second.
We're not live.
Now we're live.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Revolutionary Optimism book launch Facebook live event today with Dr. Paul Zeitz. We have some incredibly wonderful guest speakers to share with you today. This book has just been a long time in coming. My name is Kristine Carlson. I'll be your moderator for this event, and I'm super honored to be here. I feel like this book is coming at the absolute most opportune time for the world. So welcome to the launch event for Revolutionary Optimism. This book is empowering. It offers healing prescriptions filled with action steps, tools, and practices designed to take you on a transformational journey step by step. Dr. Paul Zeitz guides you and awakens your political imagination, bolsters your bravery, and you will foster unity with others. This is an amazing read for these times. Get ready to embark on a roadmap of empowerment and inspiration. We are so excited to welcome you here tonight. We'll be discussing this book, Revolutionary Optimism, 7 Steps for Living as a Love-Centered Activist, and the positive effect that it can have on you to ignite how you might feel about the impact that you might choose to create for our world. And we will hear from several amazing guest speakers, as well as the author himself, Dr. Paul Zeitz. Our special guest speakers will be Reverend Redeem Robinson and Lisa Sharon Harper. But first, as I've alluded to, I'm sure you'll agree that this book couldn't have come at a more perfect time with the polarization that's happening in the US and all of the world events that are happening around us. All we have to do, we don't have to look far at all to see what's happening in the world today and to see how relevant this book is to the youth of this world. I know for myself personally, I learned so much. I love this book for all of the historical value and the rich stories that Paul provides in this book, the teaching stories. And the people are incredible, how they show us how they've turned their passion into something that ignites a spark for humanity. So, Revolutionary Optimism is Dr. Paul Zeitz's mission, his guidance and call to action. It is an indispensable roadmap for personal and global liberation with a clear step-by-step guide, a timely remedy, and cure for anxiety and hopelessness when facing the super crisis in our world. This book inspires and ignites this spark within and our collective flame to unify action for healing and transformation. Revolutionary Optimism is the antidote to anxiety and apathy. And in it, you will learn 7 steps that teach 3 life-changing, actionable strategies. The first one, doing your inner work to reach your highest potential. and choosing to put love at the center of all you do. The second is awakening your political imagination and manifesting your vision for a better world. And the third is discovering how to take action and contribute to peaceful revolutionary movements that are unifying. So together we can heal and repair ourselves, our human family, and the beautiful world we inhabit. Sounds pretty good, doesn't it? This is a practical handbook for anyone feeling anxiety about their life and the super crises that are affecting our world. It will teach you to live step by step and how to put love at the center of everything you do. I want to encourage you to visit revolutionaryoptimism.com now and purchase your copy of the book. That's what this launch event is all about, is to get the book in the hands of the people that really need it and want it. I know for myself, like I said, it came at the perfect time for me, at a time when I was feeling a sense of hopelessness and despair about all that's happening in the world, especially, beginning in the US and then since everything that's happening. And I'm sure that you're going to find it truly inspirational too. We will be sharing with you Dr. Paul's Changemaker Companion Kit as you purchase the kit, which includes the companion journal and workbook to Revolutionary Optimism. You'll get 365 days of inspirational quotes to your email, 1 quote per day. And most importantly, you'll get the digital book club in a box. This is super cool. Your complete guide to inspiring action and building community. You can create your own community and your own book club around this book. You can dive into Revolutionary Optimism Book Club in a box for a comprehensive toolkit designed to enrich your reading experience and foster community action. And now, with delight, I'm going to introduce to you Dr. Paul Zeitz. He is a preventive medicine physician, I don't even know how to say this word. Epidemiologist or whatever. That's how smart he is. Author and award-winning champion of global justice and human rights. He has been on the front lines of the global AIDS movement, climate transformation, racial and gender equity, authentic democracy, sustainable development, and child welfare in the US and around the world. Often when the odds against success appeared to be insurmountable, with Dr. Paul's leadership and support, barriers fell and victories rose. Through his many challenges and experiences, he also learned to fail forward. Dr. Paul is sparking personal and global conversations to heal and repair ourselves, our relationships, and awaken political imagination, stimulate a new vision of peaceful revolutionary transformation. His committed work over the past 30 years reveals a deep truth. When we look within and approach our personal healing work with self-compassion and love, we strengthen ourselves and are better able to extend a hand and heart of peace to others, to serve and participate in the urgent issues of the day with empathy, understanding, and real wisdom. Dr. Paul, welcome to your book launch.
Oh my God, it's happening.
It is.
Thank you so much, Chris. I'm literally like trying to get the Facebook Live thing to work properly. So thank you for that generous introduction. It allowed me to, make that happen. I hope. It's like been a bit of a technical challenge, but thank you so much. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Redeem, for joining. And thank you, Chris, for hosting and for all of your support. This is the baby that got born today. We brought Revolutionary Optimism into the world. This is a copy that I got just a couple days ago, and holding the book, and I sleep with it now. And it's like it's been quite a journey to bring this baby. I do feel like the mother of it into the world. And Kristine Carlson and I met about a year ago, and she's been my book doula, and she's been there supporting me, coaching me, connecting me, helping writing, editing, everything, the whole thing, and a whole team of people that she assembled around this. So thank you so much to everyone for that. And it's just I am privileged. I have been having the privilege to be able to bring revolutionary optimism into the world. So I humbly offer this as a love offering, really. And it's been an incredible experience because, I wrote Revolutionary Optimism because I suffer from hopelessness, despair, anxiety, skepticism, and cynicism at times. And sometimes I go under the blanket and throw the cover up and go, I give up, I'm done, And so over the course of my life, I've tried to figure out, why do I go into that and how do I heal myself from that? And I anticipated in 2024, we would be entering into quite a year. So 2 years ago, I began the writing process and the visioning process. And I did everything I could to get it out as fast as I could. The one original dream date was January 10th, 2024, which was the day that Thomas Paine launched Common Sense on January 10th, 1776. And then just 6 months later, there was a revolution. And so I thought, oh, how did he do that so quick? I still don't understand that. So we're now getting this out on May 1st with the idea we don't know. We're in the information technology communication realm. Things are moving much faster. So our intent is to spark peaceful revolutions globally, literally everywhere, and including here in the United States. That's my dream. And we already know that violent revolutions have already started. They're spreading on the streets of our country, and all the wars that we're waging, all the genocides that are underway. And so the opportunity that I see is that we can unify ourselves in doing whatever we can, love-centered actions to create a countervailing, peaceful revolution as a response, a counter response. And I think we can win. We can stop fascism. We can stop this violence. We can create a new reality of new social, economic, and political systems. So I just am excited to offer this and make it available. And over to you, Chris. I don't know if I covered what you wanted me to cover, but I'm happy to answer any questions. I've done 4 podcasts today, so I don't really remember what I said to who.
Well, I mean, I love when you say that you're living as a revolutionary optimist, and maybe you could just share with everybody listening what that really means when you're living as a revolutionary optimist. Talk about some of your experiences that you've had recently that have put you to the test.
Yeah, so my wife Mindy and I went to Alabama earlier in April on a pilgrimage, a Living Legacy Project pilgrimage to Alabama. We went to Birmingham, Montgomery, and Selma, Alabama for a week with 40 pilgrims, interfaith, interracial, intergenerational, and it was a deep dive learning into actually what happened there. And it was so inspiring when a community said enough is enough. It was a widespread community, and it was support. They had support from white and Black people locally and nationally. But they just said it's time to act. And they rose, they lifted themselves out of normal pattern. They disrupted and interrupted, and then they went into direct action, peaceful, nonviolent direct action. And then I was so inspired by that and transformed by it. And I was really feeling called to go to Israel and Palestine. I I was born a Jew, and now I think of myself as interspiritual, but I still have that heritage. And I've been very pained and struggling and suffering. And the book, Revolutionary Optimism, I actually take a stand for liberation and for a liberation from extractive capitalism and from all oppression systems, from caste systems. And what I see is that the state of Israel is implementing a caste system on the Palestinian people. I think we lost Radim. Oh, there he is. Okay. I felt like I'm saying that in the book, but I feel like I hadn't been in Israel, Palestine in 8.5 years. And frankly, I've been there so many times, 7 or 8 times throughout my life. My father was a rabid Zionist, and he's also the perpetrator of my childhood sexual violence, just as a side note. Which is, so I felt like I needed to go on the ground. So I tried to go, 1 flight canceled, 2nd flight canceled, and they gave me a return. I was about to come home, and I'm like, no, I have to act. And I got there and I had a most amazing experience, bizarre. And we'll talk more about that later. But I put revolutionary optimism to a stress test. I had I had to be really like, it's go time. That was what I was like. I got to get there. I'm going. And then it was like, okay, I have to be my highest self. So I have to liberate myself from my triggers, and my inner dragon has to be like calm in the face of very difficult circumstances. And yeah, then I was peace crafting. Every conversation was being a listening friend and learning from multiple perspectives. And frankly, I have to admit, I had never done that before. I had never really talked to Palestinians living in East Jerusalem or Palestinians living in the occupied West Bank. All the times I'd been there before, I just was kind of blind to that. And that was the culture. And I regret that. I'm sad about that. But anyway, I got there this time. And, then it's like there is a people's peace movement underway, a joint movement of Palestinians and Israelis that are envisioning a peaceful future. And so that was very inspiring. Then I joined a delegation of rabbis and activists from the United States, organized by Rabbis for Ceasefire. And we went down, we brought food aid down to the Erez crossing, where the border between Israel and Gaza is. And it's right in the area where the Hamas attack was. So Sderot is the town. So we were in the town where all that happened. And we were bringing food aid. The police stopped us. 7 folks got arrested. So Redeem, I was thinking a lot about you because I was a red, meaning I was prepared to be arrested. And I was remembering our 22-hour overnight in DC Central Cell Block, which I hope we'll come back to, and preparing myself for that again, because we were prepared to be, held, and all kinds of scenarios we were all prepared for. So, and then Lisa, when I was standing there on the front lines, you told your story in the book about your Ferguson line, and we covered that on the recent podcast, and I was like, oh, what I have to do here is bless the police while while they're pushing me and hurting my back, and I'm protecting the 71-year-old and all the women. I'm like trying to be like de-escalating, like calm down, guys. Like we're here in peace. We're carrying white flags. And so I thought of you a lot. I was like, okay, Lisa told me what to do. So you both are my mentors and my partners in this effort to bring forward peaceful transformation. And I just that's one of the big messages of the book, which is that we're in this together. And it's so, it's like, okay, all of us are in this together, and all of our listeners, we're all in this together. We're all fellow people living through this auspicious moment in time. It's really, it's like I'm honored to be alive now because we get to be part of this.
And Paul, what did you find with the people that you talked to? Because I know can you just also speak to why you did the first pilgrimage and why you did the second one back to back, just so our listeners know?
Well, that's a good question. The pre-launch phase for Revolutionary Optimism in my mind started April 1st. So I said on April 1st, I'm going to stop. I'm going to be a revolutionary optimist in the world. I've kind of been in the back in writing this book for the last, and I haven't been out in the world like I normally am. And so I was like, okay, I'm going out in the world. So I've been working with Lisa and Redeem and many other leaders on racial equity. I'm a white ally in the racial equity movement for the last 4 years, since George Floyd was murdered. And I've navigated that space. I'm very active in that space and supporting transformative bold legislation of radical reparations and radical truth-telling, which is Lisa is a leader and helped spearhead that. We tell that story in the book, Lisa does. And yeah, it was like, and I, the book has a lot about Martin Luther King and the politics, love politics and peaceful resistance. And so I just felt like I needed to learn more and I needed to be in the world, and I needed to, we went to the Legacy Museum, on the lynching. We met people with lived experience. We met Joanna, who was on Selma Bridge. She was an 11-year-old girl then, and now she's an adult woman. And you can't, nothing better than hearing the wisdom from folks that lived through it. So I recommend people go now while these elders are still around. And then, yeah, so that was why, and it was so powerful beyond my, I was completely transformed by it. And because the other thing was all the pilgrims in their own worlds, they were from 15 states, all races, everyone's living their own world, but we all were common-hearted. We were all of the same big heart. We're not alone. There's all of us are out there doing this stuff. So it was a beautiful thing. And that's what sparked me to go to Israel, Palestine.
It's
I
so
want to
beautiful.
be, yeah.
That's so beautiful, Paul. Thank you for sharing that. I'd love to bring in our first guest speaker, Reverend Redeem Robinson. He grew up in the Methodist Episcopal Church before he went over to the African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church, which was birthed in 1970 as a result of racial discrimination by white churchgoers against Black, and refers to itself as the Freedom Church. However, he noticed that this freedom didn't extend to himself, an openly gay Black man, nor his LGBTQ brothers, sisters, and siblings. He called this discrimination hypocrisy, leading Reverend Redeem Robinson to founder the All Souls movement in Los Angeles, an inclusive faith and liberation movement to liberate all people spiritually, sexually, and systematically in a spiritual space for all people. Welcome, Reverend Robinson. Oh, hey, let's unmute you. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
Yes, thank you for having me. I just want to make one clarification. I'm not openly gay, I'm openly pansexual.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm one of them letters, but
Okay, sorry.
no, you're good. Just want to give a shout out to the other pans who are out there.
Oh, yeah, thank you. So, Reverend Robinson, could you discuss with us the role of faith in activism and community healing, and just share some of your personal experiences that connect with the principles that are discussed in Dr. Paul's book?
Yeah, so I'll use, for example, one of the reasons why I like to use the term holy trouble. That's a term I like to use. One of the reasons why you will see me organizing and stirring up holy trouble to call out the oppressors, to stand up for the oppressed, to just be on the side with the oppressed is one of the reasons why you see me doing that, is because that is the center of my faith tradition. As a Christian, as a follower of Jesus Christ, when we look at the ministry of Jesus Christ, we see him himself living on the margins. We see himself standing up to systems of oppression, the empire. And so, it's just following the teachings of Christ that led me to one, call on systems to let our people go. Dr. Paul and I was arrested in September in front of the White House over climate change. Well, the Bible does tell us that we are to be good stewards of the earth. And so that's one of the reasons why I was out there, is because we have to be good stewards of our earth. We have to take care of our planet, and we must call on those who are in power to actually, especially for those who say that they are Christian, like President Joe Biden says he is, we must call on them to act to protect the environment. So that's one of the reasons why you see me out here, as a holy troublemaker. Right now, I think with Dr. Paul's book that just came out, right now, with so much that's going on, we have Palestine, we have Ukraine, we have police brutality that's happening right now as we speak on college campuses, due to these encampments. Then we have the election coming up. We have Donald Trump. We have Joe Biden. We have other third-party candidates who are not getting attention. I want to add those in there as well. So the world is right now is upside down. It's all over the place. And right now, I think we need words of hope. And also words that will help us. We can be radical in our approach and still have hope. I think too often, as revolutionaries, we tend to give up. We believe that there is no hope. But I believe that the writings of Dr. Paul is definitely going to give us some hope during some challenging times.
Yeah, and it just really brings people together. It's a philosophy that is about bringing all ideas forward and not polarization. Correct, right?
Yes.
Which is so much a part of, what our nation has always wanted for democracy.
Yes.
We've gotten so far away from that, though. And I think that that's what's so disconcerting, is that I think many people have forgotten what it really means to be a patriot, be American, be in a society where all ideas are welcome, where we benefit from sharing that space. And that story is in the book. I love that story about you and Paul in jail, particularly because of the way Paul describes it. It sounded pretty horrific and kind of scary in a lot of ways.
Yeah, the way how Dr. Paul described it, that's how it went down. It was a rough 20-something hours.
Had you ever been arrested
Can I share
before?
a funny part about it?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, there was a really funny part, the beginning, Redeem, sort of the beginning. So we were held for a few hours by the DC Park Police, like for 4 hours, and then it was this Redeem and I left to go overnight to the DC Central Cell Block, which is an overnight hellhole. And we were transported over there. We got in, they checked for razor blades in our mouth. They did a medical interview of sorts. They fed us a bologna sandwich on soggy white bread. And then they were taking us to where we were going to stay overnight. The room was, it was a hallway of cages. People were screaming and banging. But it was relatively empty. So I was like so naive. I'm like, okay, well, why don't you have your cage and I'll go into the cage next to it so we can have privacy, because it's all open toilets, So this guard from Nigeria, because I lived in Nigeria for months and years. I worked there, so I could tell he was from there. So I'm like, okay, I've been, I started talking about my Nigeria life, and so he was kind of nice to us. Befriend the guards. That's what I learned.
Yeah.
And he started laughing. He's like, this Redeem was going along with my idea to the cab driver. The guy goes, hello, friends. This place is going to be full by the morning. So you might want to go in the share cage together. We're like, okay, get it. He was right. The whole place filled up all night long. It was unbelievable. And it was just so funny how naive I was. Thinking I could have my own cage. So now I've joined the campaign to close DC Central Cell Block. Our human rights were violated less than 1 mile from Joe Biden's White House and Donald Trump's White House. This is barbaric behavior of other human beings. And I'm a white guy. I knew I was going to get out in the morning. I'm privileged. And it was mostly Black and brown people that were rolling through there that night. It was very painful to watch and to feel the injustice of the mass incarceration system, which we have 2 million or so Black men and women wrongly incarcerated. So I want to advocate for a Emancipation Proclamation 2.0. Bam.
That's one. So Redeem, I had a question for you. Had you ever been had you ever been arrested before? Because I know in Dr. Paul's book, he talks about the different levels of activism later in the book. And I know that getting arrested is when you're a very serious activist. Like you kind of know going out there what in a way that it's possible that you might get arrested, correct?
Yeah, I've been arrested at least 10 times. There's only been a couple of times where I've been held overnight. I will say being held overnight in DC, that was probably my worst experience.
Dr. Paul's first time being arrested, and what's your worst experience? That's great. That's great, Paul.
No, it was
Way to
my
get in
third
there.
time. It was my third
Oh,
time.
your third time. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much. Do you have anything else that you'd like to share about your story, Reverend Redeem, or anything before we move on to our next guest speaker?
Nothing I can add right now. All I know is if you're watching this, get this book.
Yeah, go to revolutionaryoptimism.com now and get your book. You're going to love it. It really is a fantastic book. Thank you so much, Reverend Robinson.
Yep.
I am going to go ahead and introduce our next guest speaker, who I love her story in the book so much. When I was reading it, I was like, wow, this woman is a real activist. I mean, I was like, she really knows what she's doing, because I'd never really seen somebody's story come to life so much as hers. And it's such a beautiful story in the book. So I want to introduce to you Lisa Sharon Harper. She's the author of several books, including the critically acclaimed The Very Good Gospel: How Everything Wrong Can Be Made Right. She's a columnist at Sojourners Magazine and Auburn Theological Seminary Senior Fellow. Ms. Harper is regularly featured on Sojourners, in the Huffington Post, the Washington Post, and Relevant Magazine. The Huffington Post recognized her as one of the 50 powerful women religious leaders to celebrate on International Women's Day. Please welcome this passionate, prolific speaker, writer, and activist as she shares with us her insights on the intersectionality of race, equity, and activism. Thank you so much, Lisa, for being on Paul's book launch. It's wonderful to meet you.
Thank you, Kristine. It's actually really fabulous to meet you as well. And this is a wonderful book launch. This is fabulous. Paul, congratulations. Job well done. So you want me to talk about the intersection between race, and
equity and activism. Yeah. Whatever
Equity
you
and
want to talk about, just share your story, and you have so much to say. So,
well, thank you for that, Kristine. I appreciate it. What I would love to talk about actually is when we're looking around at the world today and we ask the question of, what's going on here? And how do we begin to parse this and get past this era of disunity, this era of broken relationship, of disillusionment. In a lot of cases, a lot of people are feeling disillusioned by a lot of things. Things we trusted in, people we trusted in, institutions we trusted in seem to be failing us now. What do we do in the midst of this? This is one of the reasons why I love Paul's book, because his focus is on how do we come together. And one of the things that I have become convinced of is that we were created, I come from the faith space, right? So we were created to be connected. And it is the process of the distrust, the process of the breaches in relationship, whether it's interpersonal relationship, systemic relationships with our place of employment, or institutional relationship with the institutions that govern our world. Some of these relationships get broken sometimes. And when they do, the thing that we are tempted to do, some of us are tempted to go into our shells and just like give up, like what Paul was talking about, that hopelessness that he talked about. Others of us are tempted to go out and dominate in order to make our way the way. But actually, the way through is the way of radical connection. It is the way that says, let's sit down. Let's actually talk this through. let me share my story and let me listen to your story. And let's listen for the values, the things we value, and find what are the common values here that we can actually come to. Let's find each other's humanity again. And that's one of the reasons why I love this book, because this book is actually full of stories on various levels of engagement, of people finding each other's common humanity and then imagining another way of being together in the world and then working towards it. And so I'm privileged to be in this book as an Imagineer, a word that I didn't know existed before this book. I think it came out of Paul's head and I love it. I've actually been using it since then. Yes, I'm an Imagineer because what I imagine what could the world look like if we were connected, if we knew each other's stories, if we cared for each other, if the world that we wanted was to come to be, what would it look like? And I'm informed in this by the civil rights movement. That is my teacher. My teacher is Dr. King. My teacher is C.T. Vivian. My teacher is John Lewis. My teacher is my mom, who was a member of SNCC and helped to open the Philadelphia office in SNCC. So when I think about what it looks like, what does it look like for us? What could it look like for us to get through, not just over or around, but to go through this current moment of disunity? What it really will take is it will take us digging down and first becoming reconnected to our own humanity, reconnected to our own breath, reconnected and grounded with the earth, reconnected to the rest of creation. The Very Good Gospel, that book, actually, it's this book right there, right? That book, that's what that's about. And then to move from there outward, to be reconnected to our families, maybe make a phone call and ask, how are you doing? What's your story this week? What's been going on? And then maybe even to begin a conversation with a neighbor that you don't know, or a neighbor that you do know and maybe just haven't talked to for a while. Why not? Why not begin to make that bridge? Because it's only in the connections that we will find peace, that we will find our future. So the story that Paul tells in the book about me is in Ferguson, and it actually is born out of that conviction, that belief, that strong belief that we are created to be connected. And what I saw happening in Ferguson was radical disconnection. And I knew something was going on when you started seeing the police shooting tear gas and rubber bullets at the crowd. And it was then that I made a decision in consultation with the group that I actually worked at Sojourners at the time, that I would be sent by them to go and help organize churches to engage in the Hands Up, Don't Shoot movement. So I went and I asked the question before I left, who should I talk to, and started talking with leaders on the ground. And by the time I was only there for about 4 days originally, it was like maybe a week. And within a few days, we had our first meeting. And within about 5 days, we had an all church meeting of this large church that brought together multiple churches in the area. And we began to ask the question, what's happening in Ferguson? Why is it happening? And what does our faith have to say about it? How are we connected to this? Even though you don't know any of the people who are marching in circles on Florissant Avenue, how are you connected? And then finally, we went and we asked the questions of the people. What brought you here? What have you been experiencing? 1 month later, they brought us back to do an action at the Ferguson police station. If you recall, the police in Ferguson were under investigation at the time by the FBI and the Justice Department, and it was because there had been many reports of racist conduct by these police officers. And so I was a part of, honestly, the most holy action I've ever been a part of, where we marched 1 block from the church to the police department. And there were hundreds of people who marched. And the first line of people who stepped forward were non-clergy. I was in that group. We stepped forward to the line of officers that were guarding the police, guarding, basically not allowing us to go any further. All we wanted that day was to talk to the chief. We just wanted to talk to the chief. Again, connection. But they were not allowing us to talk to the chief. And so we stepped forward instead and spoke with officers one by one. Each of us, non-clergy, stepped forward and talked with one of the officers. And it was our job to share with them what we had experienced while in Ferguson over the course of the last week. The stories that we had heard from the young people about their interactions with the cops, with the police. And then we stepped back after sharing our stories. I actually, with the officer I talked to, I asked him if I could hold his hands. He said no. So I held one of his hands, not both of them. And he listened. And then I moved back. And then the clergy stepped forward and they offered the officers, one at a time, each clergy speaking with one of the officers. They offered them an opportunity to repent of their complicity with an unjust system, to confess and repent. And one of the officers, who was actually speaking with Reverend Jim Wallace at the time, began to weep. He just began to break down and weep. Now, he did not confess anything. He did not repent, but he wept openly. And it turns out months later, maybe a year later, it came out in the FBI report and the Justice Department reports, if you recall, that police department and many of the officers we were speaking to were written up in that report as having passed between them utterly racist emails, denigrating the people with whom they were charged to protect. We gave them an opportunity to repent, to confess, but they did not take it. But I learned that the value of approaching even the police, the oppressors, like the enforcers of the oppression, approaching them and call forth their humanity. That gives a possibility of connection. And from there, many things are possible. So, I've had those kinds of experiences again and again, most recently at Lockheed Martin, protesting their sales of arms to Israel in the middle of a genocide. And 25 of us were arrested. And it was a holy day, a really holy day.
Wow, that's just so beautiful and so brave and just an incredible story. I mean, one of the really heartbreaking things that I've witnessed just personally through this time period is just the families and the friendships that have ended due to polarization.
Mm-hmm.
And what you speak to is really, just profound. I can sit with my dad and listen to him, and we have very different views and we come from very different places, but I have a deep level respect for him and his views. And it doesn't mean that I'm going to vote the same way he's going to vote or not, but it just means that I want to know what his perspectives are and what he, why he thinks the way he does, and I think that is what has been very deeply lost. And it's heartbreaking to see families divided and friendships gone because of what's been happening in this, time period. So thank you so much for that beautiful story and for your work in the world and, for your sharing of your story in Revolutionary Optimism. It truly is a revolutionary optimism story. So thank you for being here. Paul, did you want to facilitate that sensibility conversation now between you and Reverend Robinson and Lisa, Sharon, Harper?
Sure. What do we have, like 5 minutes or 7 minutes?
Yeah. I think that's a really powerful conversation to what's transpiring in the world today and why this is so relevant to the world right now.
Yeah, so thank you, Chris. Redeem and Lisa, the idea here is to have a short conversation. All of us are really at the front lines of peaceful revolutionary movements, and we're all love-centered. I mean, I don't want to call you something, but we're all kind of revolutionary optimists, if you want to think of it that way. Um, and we wanted to just explore like our sense of what's happening right now with the Palestinian liberation movement and how that's unfolding on college campuses and globally, and what is at stake. And just, so a couple minutes each, or, I think each of us are doing our part in that. And we wanted to offer the listeners of the launch, like, uh, our experience of being revolutionary optimists through this at the front line during this particular moment in history. Over to you, Lisa.
Yeah, thank you so much, Paul. I was just on the campus of Columbia University this last Sunday, and that's my alma mater. I got my master's degree in human rights from Columbia. And I happened to be in New York City speaking for a conference, and then a few people who were there said, "Hey, we're going to go on Sunday." So I tagged along, and lo and behold, while it was very hard to get onto the campus, we literally waited for probably more than an hour. We finally were able to get on because we were ushered in by people who were faculty. And we just did an interfaith service. But it really felt like holy ground, because the stories, again, the disconnection, so much of the disconnection that is happening to us in this arena around the question of Israel-Palestine comes from the lack of listening to each other's stories, the lack of even ability to hear each other's stories because of censorship, because of our algorithms and how they are moving us into boxes that are they just tell us what we want to hear oftentimes, but they're not necessarily telling us all the time the truth. And so I knew I needed to go in order to see for myself, because what I had heard from my friends, one of them who is a Zionist, whose father was like the president of the Zionists in America for a while, whatever that means, whatever that, or I don't know the name of the association, but you get my drift. She was telling me how it's a mad mob, and how Jewish people are being threatened, and these are anti-Jewish people, and so I said, wait, we got to just go and see for ourselves. And the first thing that struck me was that, first of all, it was a very quiet camp, very quiet. It was, before you can go in, you actually have a list of principles of nonviolence that you had to agree to before you entered the camp. And they had been up for weeks. We had to agree not to use any anti-Semitic language at all. That was not for this space or any space. And when we entered, I was struck by the reality that the majority of the people that I met were Jewish. I was like, that's not the story that's being told out there. Wait a minute. The majority of people that I met were Jewish, but there was also an incredible diversity of Black, Latino, Asian, Native American, I mean, all of the people, Arab, Palestinian people who were also there. And what I shared is I shared the Beatitudes. I shared the Sermon on the Mount, because as I was reading it just a day before, I actually was led to tears thinking about them, because it says, "Blessed are the peacemakers." And peace there is not the absence of conflict. Peace there is shalom. It is radical reciprocity, radical truth-telling, radical reparation. That's what brings shalom, not just silence of our voices. And so when Jesus says, "Blessed are the shalom makers," he's talking about people who move us into truth, through the actual truth of what is happening, to a deeper understanding that connects us and reconnects us, and also connects us to God. So I shared that, and the piece that led me to weep was, "Blessed are those who are persecuted for the sake of justice, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." And so I don't want to unjustly shift the entire focus to the protesters on college campuses, the reality is that almost now 35,000 people have died in the last 7 months in Gaza. 70% of those are women and children, and the men matter too. But we know that 70% at least were non-combatants. 70%. And up to 10,000 people or more are still buried under the rubble. And nearly 80,000 have been maimed. So you're looking at, just for the people who have been killed, maimed, or are still missing, you're looking at a number that is more than 120,000. So how do we comport in America? How do we, taxpayers, justify this gross breaking of international law and the very standards that were established to help people of Jewish descent never to have to experience another Holocaust again? By slashing and obliterating international law now, what we are doing is we are actually making Jewish people around the world less safe. So the most Jewish-friendly thing you can do is to call for a ceasefire and to call for a free Palestine, to call for flourishing of all of the people and full rights for all of the people living on that land today.
Beautiful, beautiful. Reverend Robinson, do you have anything that you would like to add to this conversation?
Yeah, wow, that was hard to come behind that, but I will say a revival is breaking out across the country, and it's not happening in churches, it's not happening through a denomination or any type of church gathering. It's happening through college students at universities. It is great to see a revival breaking out where people are calling for peace.
Mm-hmm.
That is the most holiest thing that I've seen in a long time, where we have people calling for peace, justice, and liberation. Revival is just straight up breaking out. And anytime there's truth telling, anything where truth is being spread, and where the masses are getting truth, of course, those who practice violence and those the oppressors, of course, they're going to want to silence truth tellers. There are those who want to quench the spirit of this revival. And unfortunately, those who are doing that are the police. And it's not just the police, but it's also political leaders on both sides of the aisle. Let's just be straight up and real. Actually, today I was looking at where most of these demonstrations are happening. They are happening in predominantly blue cities where, I don't mean to get partisan here, but where mostly Democrats are in leadership. And so there is not only I feel like a spiritual revival, but I believe that there's also a political revival happening. People are getting awakened. They're seeing where our money is going towards. They're seeing what really matters, what America's priorities really are. I mean, we just had the internet connection. God, I forgot the exact name. Where millions of people were just able to have access to internet connection. That was that ended yesterday, and we had the opportunity to fund internet connection for millions of people, but we didn't. You know what we funded? We funded bombs, missiles, guns, tanks. We funded a genocide. And so more people are starting to become awakened to what is happening. And they're seeing where what America is really about. They're seeing who is truly running this country. And it is the ruling class. It is those who are getting rich off of militarization. Those who are getting rich off of the military-industrial complex. Anyway, I can go into a whole spiel about that. But yeah, revival is breaking out. We need to embrace it. We need to support the students there. And for all faith leaders, we need to get out of the four walls of our churches, and we need to be a part of this revival that is happening.
Beautiful. Well, Dr. Paul, we are getting into the final minutes of your book launch celebration here. I would love for you to offer some closing remarks and thoughts for this evening before we wrap up.
Thank you so much. It's been great to have you all here together in this celebratory moment. And I appreciate you and all the listeners that are here with us, or those that will listen to the recording. I just want to say that I'm going to stand with all of you for love and peace, and for us to manifest that together. And if you're willing to be listening friends, I'd love to share my poem called Revolutionary Optimism, which is in the front of the book. We might have to go a couple minutes over, but for me, it's like the best way for me to share the essence of it in one quick poem. So is that okay, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. Please
Okay,
do.
great. Thank you. Revolutionary Optimism, the poem. From my heart to your hearts. Love is the force of all life. We belong in this disruption. Our hearts are beating strong, pumping compassion, our souls deployed. We chant truce, demand bold action. We place love at the center with every step and every breath. In loving grace we stand. We choose love. Trim tabs of love in the face of opposition, in the eye of the sniper's rifle, in the face of arrest and torture, in the face of derision and denial, we choose justice. As sacred community, we are all in for all life. We protect all children. We stand for repair over destruction. Do you feel the trembling of a peaceful revolution? I feel it. To honor our ancestors, ourselves, our children, our grandchildren, and all future generations, we liberate ourselves. We choose peace. Messengers of love, rise, synchronize, mobilize, unify, now. Brave angels, listen first, aim high, pursue life, liberty, and happiness. Ride the waves of transformation for our blossoming redemption. We choose joy. With the rising tides of grief and terror, tears flow today and for all that is to come. Clear and safe, we are in this together as one. Boundaries dissolve between ages, classes, faiths, genders, races, from all places. Manifestors of love and justice, ignite the sparks within, raise the flames for all. We are willing to sacrifice. We are willing to live and willing to die. For love is as fierce as death. As aquifers erupt as geysers, we flow into the streets. The people are rising like the waters, nurturing liberation, miraculous vortex of healing and repair. Revolutionary optimism is spreading. Our collective heart is in sight. Rise, rise, rise.
Oh, I love that poem so much, Paul. It's absolutely beautiful. Gives me chills every time I read it. I just want to remind you all that this handbook is not only a remedy for personal anxieties, but also a blueprint for contributing to the collective healing of humanity and our planet. Revolutionary Optimism is more than a book. It's a call to live the path of love and to actively shape a brighter future for us all. A very special thanks to our participants, our guest speakers, Lisa, Sharon, Harper, and Reverend Redeem Robinson for joining us this evening. And just a huge, huge pat on the back to Paul Zeitz for taking this on, for birthing this beautiful book into the world so that we can all be inspired during a time where we need all of the light that we can possibly find in this world to step into, to be called forth. And for each of us, one of the things that Paul says that I love so much is there's no small action. Every action of every individual is needed right now. So however you find that your inspiration leads you to a place of action, please take it. And don't ever say that it's too small, because it's all needed. I want to thank you all for being here. Please go to revolutionaryoptimism.com and get your copy of this amazing book today. It's a wonderful book to share with your family and friends and to learn and grow from. And the stories are amazing. Thank you so much for being here this evening. Yay for Paul.
Thank you, friends. Peace. We're in this together. See you soon.
Thank you, Paul.
Stop recording.